Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see everyone here today. We are in Luke, the 23rd chapter. For those that are praying for rain, you did a good job.
Come back in August.
If you remember last week when we was talking here in class about when Jesus was on the cross and the things that he was going through, but there in verse 39 when it says one of the criminals who were hanged there were hurling insults or abuse at him, saying, are you not the Christ? Save yourself and save us. This is one of the criminals that was hanging on a cross next to him. But the other answered, rebuking him, saying, do you not even fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed are suffering justly, for we are receiving what we deserve for our deeds. But this man has done no wrong. And he was saying, Jesus, remember me when you come in your kingdom. What does this tell you about the thief that was saying this to Jesus? What does that tell you about him? He had heard who Jesus was. He knew who Jesus was. Even though he was a criminal, he knew who Jesus was.
And he also knew he had done wrong.
And he was telling the other thing, man, we deserve to be here for what we've done. Jesus hadn't done anything. And then he said to him, truly I say to you, today you shall be with me in paradise. Of course, we talked about that last week, about still under the Old Testament, still under the old law. And then Jesus was able to forgive sin. Jesus was able to do that. Okay? Now, verse 44 is where we'll start at this morning. And it was now about the 6th hour, and darkness fell over the whole land until the 9th hour. Okay. At that time, when we say the 6th hour, what time of day is that?
3 in the afternoon.
3
in the afternoon.
The 6th hour? It'd be noon.
Yeah.
And it was dark until the 9th hour, which was 3 o'clock.
Yes. Noon to 3.
Now think about that. Would you not think something's wrong if it went dark in the middle of the day?
Well, when we have an eclipse, what do people do? Which is a natural and
I would say this was even more intense
well,
than
of course it would be
eclipse.
because
Yeah. The earth stands still when we have an eclipse. But do you think about this? And it says, darkness fell upon the whole land until the 9th hour. So from noon to 3, because the sun was obscured and the veil of the temple was torn in two. Now you stop and think about that. Here it was darkness in the middle of the day.
and the way it was torn.
Yeah. And then the veil or the curtain in the temple, what was this? What was the significance of this? Do we know? The veil, where was this located? Let me just put that first. Where was this located? Between the holy place and the most holy place. Dividing where God was in the temple. Okay?
And no one could approach. Except
No, except the high priest and only certain times.
And it also says in another gospel that there was an earthquake at that time
Yes,
as well.
earthquake, yeah. But you stop and think about this. All the things that were taking place at this time. We know the earth. What else happened? In other gospels, it said went dark, earthquakes. What else?
The dead rose.
People came out of the grave Sunday. Verse 46.
Just an average day.
Just, yeah. Oh, my. Yeah. And Jesus crying out with a loud voice. Here Jesus was on the cross when all this was taking place. Crying out with a loud voice, saying, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. Having said this, he breathed his last. Let that soak in. The last words that Jesus said, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit.
So, I don't guess it brings that out in this account, but there was one where he said, my God, why have you forsaken me?
Yeah. Yeah.
And to me, that is probably the most
It's kind of almost
moving,
a heart.
telling
Yeah.
thing that he spoke while on the cross.
It's almost heartbreaking when you think
Yes.
about it. When you hear he's forsaken, God had to turn. God had to. He couldn't look there on him.
God was brokenhearted.
Oh, yes. 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 He breathed his last. Now, verse 47. Now, when the centurion saw what had happened, he began praising God, saying, certainly this man was innocent. All right, here's the centurion, who was a Roman. One of the soldiers. The centurion was not only just a soldier, he was a leader. Okay? He's seen what had happened. What did he start doing? Began praising God. Certainly this man was innocent. And all the crowds who came together for this spectacle, when they observed what had happened, began to return, beating their breasts. And all of his acquaintance and the women who accompanied him from Galilee were standing at a distance, seeing these things. Okay. This is something we don't do much in southeast Oklahoma. When they seen what was happening, they started beating their breast or beating their chest. Why? What was the significance of that?
Realized.
Huh?
They realized what they had done.
A lot of this was anguish and sorrow. They see, when they had to do these things like this. They knew what they'd done. They knew what had just happened.
Do you ever think about the best days of our life, whatever? This had to be the darkest day. All mankind.
Of mankind?
Forever.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
But then also it was the best day
Yes.
too, because without that,
Yeah.
where would we be?
Yeah, we're going to continue here in the next few verses. This is the whole thing that our Christianity is circled around. This is the center of our belief.
I think it's what we call a bittersweet moment.
Yeah, a
It's
bittersweet. I
so
think that'd be true.
agonizing,
Yeah,
but it also,
I think that's right. But here all the people that was with him were seeing these things happen. Okay? Now in verse 50. A man named Joseph, who was a member of the council, a good and righteous man, he had not consented to their plan and action. A man of Arimathea, a city of the Jews who was waiting for the kingdom of God. You know what? So many times when we talk about the Sanhedrin Council or the scribes, the Jews, all those high priests and all that, we want to lump everybody together. They're all guilty. They're all had the blood of Christ on their hands. What's it say here? We know there was a few that wasn't. Who else?
It's the whole thing.
We know Joseph was a member of the council. He wasn't for it. Can you think of another one? Who came to?
Nicodemus.
Nicodemus was one. Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, you think about this. Luke made a point in saying what kind of person Joseph was. That he had nothing to do with this. He was a good and righteous person. Not only that, but he was waiting on the kingdom of God. What does that tell you about him? He was a believer. He was a believer of Jesus. This man went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Think about this. Could just any old person off the street go do that? No. A man of position could go talk to Pilate. Okay? So this man went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Verse 53. And he took it down and wrapped it in linen cloth and laid it in a tomb cut into the rock where no one had ever lain. Reading that, what comes to your mind about Joseph? And how he treated Jesus?
His importance.
I see reverence, and not only that, but compassion and tender.
And respect.
He was respect was here.
There was also a tendency of urgency because
Yeah,
they were about to not be able to do anything.
that's right. You got to remember, this was, in just a little bit, we'll get right to it, but it says, this was on Friday evening. Let's just bring it to our times. The day before Sabbath, which was Friday evening. When did Sabbath start on
Sundown.
Friday?
Sundown.
Sundown, about 6 that evening. Okay? So this was all taking place before then. And it was also prophesied about being in a tomb where no one had ever been. Anyway, this is fulfilling prophecy. Now in verse 54, talking about that. It was the day of preparation, and the Sabbath was about to begin. So it's getting late in the afternoon. Okay? Now the women who had come with him out of Galilee followed and saw the tomb and how the body was laid. Then they returned and prepared spices and perfumes. And on the Sabbath day, they rested according to the commandment. You have to remember, they had to get back home and prepare whatever they were going to prepare. Because the Sabbath day, what did they do?
Nothing.
Nothing. They rested. Okay? Keep that in mind. Friday was what day? Day 1. Sabbath was what? Day 2. Keep that in mind as we go through this. Verse 1 of chapter 24. But on the first day of the week, which would have been Sunday, which would have been day 3. At early dawn, they came to the tomb bringing the spices which they had prepared. These were talking about the ladies, okay? They had gotten up early dawn, and coming here to the tomb. And they found the stone rolled away from the tomb. But when they entered, they did not find the body of the Lord Jesus. Let's stop and put yourself in these women's position. Can you imagine You have to remember, was this just a tiny rock that was just placed over a hole? This was a big rock, because this was a big entry into this tomb.
They probably saw that rock rolled there because they were still there
They seen it.
witnessing everything that was going on.
They seen it sealed up, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when they got there, the stone was rolled away, and Jesus was gone. What would be your first thought?
Stole the body.
Huh?
They stole the body.
Somebody stole them. The Romans, and the Jews had them, the Romans moved the rock, and they don't tell them what they've done. That would be our first thoughts, wouldn't it? I'm sure.
Even though there were Roman guards guarding the tomb.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, oh, them guards, they could be paid. Hey, nothing would ever be said. That's how we think of things today.
Well, they told them as much, I mean, tells us that later on.
Later on,
That they were paid to
keep quiet.
be quiet. about it.
Yeah, don't say nothing. You
They
don't
were
know
told what
nothing.
to say and
And
everything.
we'll take care of it with the Roman officials, the Jews said. Okay. So they did not find the body of the Lord. Verse 4. While they were perplexed about this, behold, two men suddenly stood near them in dazzling clothing. Is that odd? You notice it didn't say they walked up behind them? What did it say?
They appeared, so
Huh?
they just appeared.
It says two men suddenly stood near them. In dazzling clothing. And as the women were terrified and bowed their faces to the ground, the men said to them, "Why do you seek the living one among the dead? He is not here, but he has risen. Remember how he had spoken to you while he was still in Galilee, saying that the Son of Man must be delivered into the hands of the sinful men and be crucified, and on the third day rise again." Remember what day this is? Third day. Don't you know these ladies was probably saying, "I remember that. It never dawned on me what he was talking about until then." And they remembered the words remembered his words, and returned from the tomb and reported all these things to the 11 and to all the rest. You have to remember, I can imagine they just ran all the way. Okay? They ran all the way back. Because they had something unbelievable to say. Okay? Have you ever stopped and thought about little kids when they got something important to tell their mom and dad? What do? They run as fast as they can to get to them. These ladies, I'm sure, have done that. Verse 10 now. Now they were Mary Magdalene and Joanne and Mary the mother of James, and also the other women with them, were telling these things to the apostles. Were they all talking at once?
Probably.
Does that happen at times?
When you're excited.
Yeah. Just something to think. I'm not saying anymore. I'm just saying. I'm sure it was. They all had something to say. Yeah. But these words appeared to them as nonsense, and they would not believe them. You know, if one person come to you and tell you a story like that, you must be dreaming. But we know there's how many? 4 or 5 here. And they all was telling the same story. And the apostles did not believe them. Why?
Women weren't back then.
Yeah, yeah.
It's their
Just an
culture.
incredible story too.
But it's the apostle. We saw him. What just happened 2 days ago?
But then you think about the other part of it, they had taught the prophecies and they had, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
that's the part, they had listened to him tell that this was going to
Yeah.
happen and they knew the old law.
Yeah. But it still wasn't sinking in.
Yeah,
But you know, you just put yourself in that position there. Here they come in with this story, and I'm sure they was out of breath, and I'm sure they was all, I can just imagine. And the apostle, what has happened to you people?
Well, they're still in shock.
Yes.
He's being crucified.
Yes. To them as nonsense, they would not believe them. Verse 12, no. Look here. But Peter got up and ran to the tomb. Well, I'm going to see for myself.
And John with him.
Yeah. So he got up and ran to the tomb, stooping and looking in. He saw the linen wrappings only, and when he went away to his home, marveled at what had happened. Of course, in some of the other accounts, the linens were how were they placed in there?
following.
They were folded. They wasn't just thrown in the corner. Somebody took a little time. Folded and put placed there.
Bill, I read a thing one time that said the tradition back then was if you were coming back to the table, you folded your napkin. If you were through, you just wadded it up and left it on there. So.
That
he was
could,
coming
yeah,
back,
I
he
can see
folded it.
that. Yeah,
And it also, if someone had come to steal him,
they
they
wouldn't have took
wouldn't
the
have taken
time.
time to fold that linen.
That's
They would
right.
have just knocked it off and gone.
That's right. If someone had stolen the body, they would not have taken the time to fold the linen.
Or
and
just
place
taking it
back.
with them.
Taking it with
Yeah. And he went away to his home, marveled at what had happened. Continuing on, verse 13. And behold, 2 of them were going that very day to a village called Emmaus, which was about 7 miles from Jerusalem. How far is it, Brandon, from here to Whitefield?
6.
6? 6 miles? Somewhere. So, say from Walmart to the crossroads, that's 7 miles. That's how far we're talking here. Okay, guys? From this one town from Jerusalem. And they were talking with each other about all the things which had taken place. I imagine that was quite the conversation, don't you imagine? Because you know how they was going. They wasn't driving in the car. They were walking. All the things they had seen. Verse 15 then. While they were talking and discussing, Jesus himself approached and began traveling with them. Keep this in mind. Keep this in mind as we're going along. Jesus, what? Approached and began traveling with him, but their eyes were prevented from recognizing him. What? What's taking place? They didn't know who Jesus was. And I take it we're going to stop right there.
It sounds
We'll take that. We'll go from the next one. Thank you for your comments.